So, without further ado, let's introduce the candidates. First up, we've got Josh Burns, ALP MHR for Macnamara. Sonya Semmens, the Greens candidate. Benson, Saulo, Liberal candidate. Welcome to you all. So let's get started with our candidates' opening remarks. We start by inviting each candidate to the podium for 3 minutes to make their pitch for your support. In each of our segments, we'll start with a different speaker so that everyone gets a chance to go first and last. Greg Day from TWiSK has a bell, and he'll keep time and ring the bell when you have 10 seconds left. Like that. And then furiously when time is up. Like that. So we actually drew lots for the order of the speakers. I actually had some cards there, and first up we have Josh, then Sonya, and then Benson. So, welcome to the podium, Josh. Thank you.
Well, good evening, and I too acknowledge that we gather on the lands of the Boonwurrung people and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. I thank Greg and the team at TWiSK for putting on tonight, and Bernadene for moderating, for Sonya and Benson for joining us, and for, in fact, the way in which they've conducted themselves throughout this campaign. It's been very civil and thoughtful and passionate, and I congratulate you both, and also Benson, happy birthday, mate. Where else would you want to spend it? Friends, my family came to this country and gathered here and settled down in Macnamara. They came here fleeing persecution. They came here looking to set up a better life. And it was here in our community that I grew up, that I live in. I live just down the road in St Kilda. And I think about what it means to be the representative of our community here in St Kilda, but also in Canberra. It's a combination of ensuring that we have a seat at the table so that we can get things done for our community, but also that we have input in the national conversation that helps shape the future of our country. Now, I think about the work that we've already done, the fact that we've invested in the National Theatre upgrade, the fact that we have the St Kilda Adventure Playground that's finally going to get a much-needed upgrade so it can be enjoyed by our younger citizens for generations to come. The fact that we have partnered with the state government to complete the pier redevelopment, which looks fantastic, but we're going to connect it to the boulevard right there on the beach. Now, the fact that we have a Medicare urgent care clinic right here in the Alfred that's been visited by over 20,000 people in our community since we've come into government. The fact that we have a headspace in South Melbourne that is being utilised to support young people who are experiencing difficulty in mental health right now. Now, all of these things have happened because we have had a seat at the table. All of these things have happened is because Macnamara has had representation in Canberra as part of a government that cares deeply about our community. But it's not just about the local things that I'm so passionate about. It's also about the national policies that this election is about. And when I think about what is at stake at this election, I think about young people in our community, of what my family went through and what they sought in our community, of opportunity, of access to healthcare, of access to education, of access to the ability to buy their own home in the place that they want to live. Now, this election, we are going to be supporting people to access the skills via free TAFE, to ensure that if you leave university, you're going to have 20% cut off your university debt, that we are going to try and make it possible to buy your first home with only a 5% deposit so that we guarantee the purchase of that house, and young people won't have to pay lenders' mortgage insurance, saving people around $20,000 per home. And this community also stands for climate action. And as we undergo the largest transition of our economy in the history of our country towards renewable energy, this community matters, and I'll continue to fight for it in Canberra. Thanks very much. I'm looking forward to the debate.
Thank you, Josh. Now let's welcome Sonya Semmens. This always happens.
I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that we're on, the Bunurong and Boonwurrung people of the Kulin Nations, and to thank you all for being here tonight. It matters, and it matters that we're gathered here today, so thank you. For over 25 years, I've worked in the charity sector to make communities safer and stronger until two things happened that changed the course of my life. One is that I was working with Melbourne City Mission to build youth crisis accommodation for kids sleeping rough. It's called Front Yard. It's on King Street and it's there now. And two, that at the same time, I found myself unable to get a rental with my two kids after a marriage breakdown. The day before we had to be out of our home, I put a desperate note on Facebook. Does anyone know of anything? A friend of a friend said we could stay in a little granny flat out the back of her mum's house in the Dandenong Ranges. And so we did. We bunked down there for 3 months through winter, wrapped in blankets to stay warm, no heating, no insulation, no Wi-Fi and no letterbox. And as you can imagine, it was really hard to keep our lives on track. My daughter started calling me the unlucky mummy, which I hated. And my son stopped eating food that was touching other food, which he still struggles with today. In our wealthy country, 400 people a week are made homeless. Some end up on the couch or in a car. Many are women and many have their children with them like I did. Housing is just the pointy end of an inequality crisis that is changing the shape of our country and our community. It's a crisis of fairness that means, for example, you pay more tax than Netflix, and for a whole generation of young people, home ownership is a dying dream. Tonight you'll hear from us about safety, cohesion and cost of living, and I want to be clear about where to place responsibility. It belongs with the major parties who have presided over slowly escalating, now skyrocketing crisis of inequality for decades and done little but tinker at the edges. I am here to say we can lift our ambition. We can expect more from our leadership. And here in Macnamara, your vote is unusually powerful. There's only 300 votes between Labor and the Greens here in this seat. You can send me, an MP independent of the major parties, to a powerful position on the crossbench where I'll go to work for you, for our community, for us, and for the deep reform, the courageous reform that we need to fix this crisis. And so tonight I'll talk about things like mental health and dental into Medicare, 50-cent public transport fares, an enormous public housing build that takes the pressure off the market. And I'll tell you this, we can't keep voting for the same two parties and expecting a different result. If you want change, the first step is to vote for it.
Thank you, Sonya. Now I'd like to welcome our last speaker for opening introduction, Benson Saulo. Thank you.
Thanks, Bernadene, and also thanks to Greg, and thank you all for being here tonight and celebrating my birthday with me, so thank you very much. I could not think of any place better to be than here tonight. I wanted to share a little bit about my background because many of you may not know who I am and what I've been able to achieve over 15 years of my professional and personal career. But my connection to country here is actually from my mum. So I'm connected to the Wemba Wemba, Jadawajali, Wirragai and Gunditjmara nations of Western Victoria and from New Ireland province in Papua New Guinea. And where I draw a lot of my inspiration from is actually from my parents' story. So my mum grew up in a tin hut with dirt floors on the outskirts of border town, and by the pure virtue of being Aboriginal, they had to live outside of town. So she actually grew up in a paddock, and in that paddock was the local tip. And you know that saying that one man's trash is another man's treasure? And that was very much my mum's upbringing. So her toys and her siblings' toys, the furniture was actually all from the local tip, discarded by the locals. On my father's side, he comes from a very small, remote village in New Ireland province. And to get to my father's island, you have to take 3 island hops up in a plane, drive 3 hours along, a dusty dirt track, and on one side you've got mountains, and during World War II it was quite a strategic. So you've got gun turrets that are jutting out of the caves, getting reclaimed by the jungle, and on the other side you've got a beautiful deep blue ocean that drops away. And you come to a small village, and my father is actually born on that beach. So where our village lies, it's called Lafu. And we don't actually know how old my father is, but when he was about 20 years old, he was sponsored to come to Australia. He was a young minister. And my mum and dad met in Bible college, and it was actually a strong foundation for the way that my upbringing was, my older brother and older sister, in regards to having a rich culture on Aboriginal and Papua New Guinean culture, as well as faith as a cornerstone in our household. And it was actually in 2011 that my world changed. So I'd come through working in the bank from the age of 15 through as a bank teller. But in 2011, I was appointed the Australian Youth Representative to the United Nations. And I travelled right around Australia engaging young people to understand issues that impact them. And there was three key things: mental health, there was climate change, as well as the uncertainty of the future. And I represented their voice at the United Nations General Assembly and led 2 negotiations on behalf of young Australians. And they focused on the global financial crisis impact on young people. That really set the tone for my forward career. And most recently, I was appointed an Australian Consul General and Senior Trade and Investment Commissioner. I've been able to operate at the highest levels of governments across Australia, as well as the US, to be able to shape policy, to be able to drive Australia's economic agenda. And it's that type of leadership that I would like to bring and represent your voices in Canberra and represent Macnamara. Thank you.